Blog Talk Radio.
A.K.A. Brooklyn's finest, A.K.A. the pop culture feminist, and everybody's favorite besties.
Hey, this is bkwrita, A.K.A. Off Switchblade Tanya, cultural enthusiast.
And I'm Nancy Ruffin, mama, writer, content creator, all-around influencer, and best described as the offspring of Biggie and Deepak.
And this is the Empowerment Hour, where pop culture and feminism intersect.
And tonight we are taking a break from all things pop culture to talk about something a little bit more serious. Specifically, we are engaging in a conversation about the current Puerto Rico economic crisis, colonialism, and what it means for Boricuas in Puerto Rico and in the diaspora. And as many of you know, Maria and I were both of Puerto Rican descent, so this is very personal for us. And as such, we wanted to talk about it, and we wanted to bring awareness to this. And it's a perfect time to do that because if you don't know, today we kick off the beginning of National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Oh, I hate that term. Can we just make it hashtag Latino Heritage Month? I like that better.
Yeah. Yes. We could definitely do that. I can't think of any better way to kick off Latino Heritage Month, which is the month where we recognize and celebrate all of the contributions that Latinos, Latinas have made to this country. So, sit tight. I encourage you all to go get yourself a drink, get comfortable, because this is going to be a very great conversation, and we have a fabulous guest tonight. So, Maria, do the honors.
Yes. I'm super excited. Joining us in tonight's conversation is Dorothy Bell Ferrer. Dorothy, also known by her pen name, Chachi Yaniré, is a recent graduate from Kent State University with a BA in Political Science and Spanish Latin American Literature. Chachi was raised in Cleveland but recently moved to Rio Pedras, Puerto Rico, to learn more about what she advocates for and to study at la Universidad de Puerto Rico, Recinto de Rio Pedras, currently working on becoming a juris doctorate and medical doctorate candidate. Chachi's an avid blogger who does much of her advocacy through writing about her experiences and sharing her narrative as an afrocaribeña. She specializes as a writer and advocate in Afro-Puerto Ricanidad, the complexities of healing for Black women, the Puerto Rican independence movements, cultural and racial identity, and socialism that caters to Black and indigenous populations throughout Latin America, the Caribbean, and the United States. Chachi Yaniré has served as a staff writer for La Respuesta Media. She's been published in La Galeria magazine and has presented workshops and conversatarios at DePaul University in Indiana and in Piñones, Puerto Rico, and has been interviewed by Latina magazine. She is currently a member of Colectivo ILE, an anti-racism organization in Puerto Rico, and she's working on a project in Cleveland's Puerto Rican neighborhood through the Hispanic Alliance Incorporation. Welcome, Dorothy.
Hi. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Buenas noches a todos.
Hello. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for being on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
First things first. So, Dorothy, would you prefer that we call you Dorothy or Chachi? Let's get, let's be clear. What do you prefer?
Lo que te dé la gana. Whichever. Yeah, I'm open. I have so many nicknames, so it's Negrita.
We can call you Insurgent Prieta, like everyone knows you. So yes, you have
sure.
many nicknames, all of which are very representative of your love for the cultura. And so, first of all, I want to thank you again for joining us tonight and for sharing your perspective on this issue, not only as a young person, but as someone who currently lives on the island. You're experiencing this firsthand. And so before we actually begin and include you in this conversation, what I want to do is to provide some background to our listeners and to those who may not know or may not understand how Puerto Rico got to where it is right now. So I want to put this in some context. So I think that it's important to mention that much of the debt that Puerto Rico has acquired is in the form of municipal bonds. And so what this means is that the government of Puerto Rico and its various agencies and utilities, they have used these types of bonds to help cover the revenue shortfalls and current expenses. And so unlike other Muni bonds, the Puerto Rican bonds, they're exempt from local, state, and federal taxes. So that in itself makes the bonds very attractive to the mutual funds and to the hedge funds and to other risk-seeking investors. So that's one component of that. So for years the government spent more money than it took in from its taxes. And so you combine that with what happened with the elimination of Section 936, which is the part of the U.S. tax code that was offering tax incentives to corporations, to kind of entice them to come to the island, to have their manufacturing plants there, to have their businesses there. They did away with that in 1996 because Congress felt that the companies were using it as a way to avoid, taxes. And so what happened was President Clinton at the time had signed a bill that said, okay, we're going to get rid of this, and it was to be eliminated within a 10-year span. And so all of the benefits for these corporations basically ended in 2006. And not coincidentally, that was the beginning of the recession for Puerto Rico. So when we think about, the fact that most of its debt comes from the bonds, and then the fact that kind of bailed after they lost their tax breaks, it's no wonder that the island is in this situation, right? I mean, is there anything else, Maria, that you want to add to this?
Well, I love how you explained it, Nancy, but I also want Dorothy to simplify that explanation, because I feel that, especially with the media in the United States, the story that we get on the mainland can seem one-sided. So, and also our people or some people may not understand the socioeconomic and political jargon that's being used in journalism and in media. So I would like for Dorothy to actually simplify Puerto Rico's plight right now, and so our listeners can better understand, and even myself so I can better understand, because sometimes I don't know what the hell is going on either, other than what I'm reading.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dorothy. The floor's all yours, honey.
Bueno, to start, Puerto Rico, when we talk about Puerto Ricans, a lot of time what we forget to mention is like the most important concept of what makes Puerto Rico what it is today, which is colonialism, United States colonialism, to be clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, like if you want to like ask the question, so what's happening in Puerto Rico? ¿Qué está pasando? The short answer, which is also pretty misleading, but it's like the most popular that I'm seeing in the media, is that there's a financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And the issue that I'm seeing with like the articles who are publishing, giving us this information about what's happening in Puerto Rico, is that they're not mentioning the colonial factor. So what's happening in Puerto Rico, yes, there's a financial crisis. Puerto Rico is in $72 billion of debt. I think that's the number.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's okay.
But they're not mentioning, like it's colonialism, because this is all caused by a colonial capitalist system. And so I think that is very important to say what's really happening is that colonialism is just manifesting itself. This is what what colonialism is. So,
and I think that that's a great point that you're making, especially because now what we're seeing with the implementation of Promesa, which is now instilling another body to come and oversee and manage and really basically rule the people of the island. It's taken away, once again, the power of the people and has given it to these external, forces that really have no vested interest in the island or in seeing the island progress or be prosperous. So what are your feelings with regard to the appointment of the Fiscal Control Board?
Okay, well, la Junta de Control Fiscal, it is like this it's really complicated because what they did was they made it sound like they're trying to come into Puerto Rico and to help Puerto Rico. And the issue is the problem that they're trying to fix, they created it. And so they're trying to use the same type of problem, which is colonialism, to fix colonialism. ¿Entiendes lo que estoy diciendo? They're fixing colonialism with more colonialism. ¿Cómo va a ser? That doesn't work, So, la Junta de Control Fiscal, for a lot of people, and I've had conversations with Puerto Ricans from everywhere, everywhere in the United States and in Puerto Rico, and people are expressing that it sounds like they think it sounds good because they think, well, it's we're getting help. I'm not saying everybody. I don't want to generalize. When the people who are agreeing with the implementation of la Junta de Control Fiscal or la promesa, they're thinking, they're coming to help, and they've never helped, and so it's really such a misleading situation because it's not clear. And even if you read the bill, they don't explain. Like, it's not clear about what it is that they're overseeing and what they're doing. It's not clear at all, and so I think that's really problematic, and it's colonialism trying to fix colonialism.
It's important to mention, though, that even with that bill and even with the fact that they have assigned these 7 bodies, these 7 people to come in here and manage the island's finances, there's nothing in the bill that really outlines or explains what they're going to do to help Puerto Rico re-stimulate the economy. So it's great that you're trying to help with the current crisis, but what is the plan to re-stimulate the economy, to get Puerto Rico to where it was, where it can be self-sufficient, where it can be prosperous, where you don't have, half of the population fleeing, coming to the United States because there's no jobs, and, you're cutting schools and you're cutting these other types of services. That bill does not mention anything about how it's going to do that. So really, who is it helping in the long run? They're trying to put a Band-Aid, right, on a bleeding, on something that's hemorrhaging, right? And you can't do that. They were trying to come up with a solution quickly that in doing so, they left out some really critical, important things that have to be addressed. And as a young person, how has this personally affected you? And you're a student there, so so how is that impacting you?
I was a student.
Okay.
I'm about to be a student again. But
okay.
to be clear, this is what the media does a lot. And media that's affected by the United States, so some media from Puerto Rico too, it likes to mess with the anxiety of Puerto Ricans. It always does that. It's always that's what they're doing with the Zika virus. Is they're saying, "Oh my God, mira, pasando," y they're not explaining totally what's happening. Like there's so many different articles. They're throwing people into panic mode. Exactly. And so to see this happening to my people and to see people, complaining or not complaining, what's the word? Afraid of what's happening. I don't want to leave Puerto Rico, pero no hay trabajo. It's crazy. And that really affects me emotionally, because I love Puerto Rico, I love my people, so it really affects me in that way. For sure,
because you see firsthand what's happening there. For us here is a little bit different because we're not there, so we don't hear the stories that you hear. We're not interacting with the people who this is directly affecting. You know, we wake up every morning, we go to our jobs, we come to our homes, we take care of the things that we have to take care of. And unfortunately, for the people that live on the island, that is not their reality. You know, many of them don't have jobs, and so they don't know how they're going to pay their bills or how they're going to make ends meet or how they're going to feed their families. And, yes, I could imagine that for you, that has to be really tough to see every single day happening. It would be for me. You know.
It is. It is.
And how are students and I guess, you know, young Boricuas on the island even managing with the recent salary wage of $4.25, which is reprehensible? I mean, has it even gone into play yet? Is that what the students are making? Or I guess anyone under 25 is what you said, Nancy?
Yes, they've reduced the minimum wage.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to my understanding, it's not totally in effect yet, but I could be wrong. Because I'm not actually in, like, the situation. But I do see a lot of protests and people speaking very clearly about how that's another form, that's like wage, that's like a slave wage, you know?
Of course.
So, it is.
Yeah, people are being very clear about that. And in, like,
I don't know
how
anyone
marches.
Yeah, how could anyone survive on $4.25 an hour? It's ridiculous. It's laughable. It's insulting. You know, that you would offer that minimum wage to an adult. You know, that's working full time. I can see maybe if you're a student, right, in high school, let's say, and you want to work part-time, you know, because you want to have a couple of dollars in your pocket. So, okay, you go, you make $4.25, but you're not supporting a household with that. You're not paying rent. You're not buying food because you have parents that are supporting you, right? But if you're an adult, right, because at 21, in essence, you become an adult, and you're paying these adult people, $4.25, I mean, it's ridiculous. How can anyone survive? You can't.
No,
and so I think
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Dorothy, you mentioned the protesters in Puerto Rico, and I know that as of most recently, August 31st, there was a huge protest against Promesa, right?
Yes.
And they were successful in blocking, and they were also successful in blocking the Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce from even speaking about Promesa. What has, and also the protest supercenter in Santurce, what has the relationship, if any, been like between the protesters and law enforcement in Puerto Rico?
The protesters and what did you say?
Law enforcement, police officers.
Okay. That's a really good question. Do you mean like now, or do you mean during the protest?
Now, during the protest, you know, in the climate of protesting, between the protesters and, you know, disrupting and the Promesa and the meetings and conferences that are being hosted in Puerto Rico, how are law enforcement behaving?
They're behaving better than I actually expected.
Oh, okay.
If we remember, honestly, and it's still terrible. It's horrible because they're being very violent, pepper spray and beating, and you know they're being violent. And the other thing is that they are sharing with the media like images of what happened in both of the protests. They're sharing these images that are like manipulated. And so you have people who are like,
actually going on.
Mira estos jóvenes, mira cómo son, malcriados. So you know, you got like, you have them causing issues between people.
Because it's shedding a negative light on the protesters.
Exactly. And these same people are also suffering. You know, I get that it's my job to protect and whatever. But these same people are suffering from the exact same thing that the protesters are protesting. So it's just like, the most confusing, most ridiculous situation. So
it has to be frustrating too, I would imagine, because when you think about the law enforcement and the police officers, these are individuals who are also being impacted by what's happening on the island. And yet they're fighting. They're fighting the people. Like, it's almost, it doesn't make any sense when you verbalize it and when you say it out loud. It's ridiculous in a way. And so I guess what I want to ask then is what should we be doing, to continue the fight for, independencia, like they say, because obviously this colonialism has not worked. It's not working. They think that, by being there, that they're actually doing us a favor, or doing, the inhabitants of the island a favor, but they're making things worse. So, I mean, how much worse would it be if Puerto Rico was independent and self-governing? Do you think that would have any impact at all? Do you think that it would be able to change the island around?
And yeah, I do. That the main issue in Puerto Rico, as I said earlier, is colonialism, and it's also capitalism. And in order for Puerto Rico to become self-sustaining, we have to get rid of capitalism, and we have to get rid of the United States colonialism. We can look at Cuba as an example. Cuba is socialist, and they are self-sustaining. You will have people who will say, well, Cuba's poor. Cuba's not poor. They think Cuba's poor because Cuba may, you may not see a bunch of Cubans with the next, Samsung Galaxy or whatever and iPhone, but they have free education and free health care, and they know how to. They're really intelligent people and know how to. In Puerto Rico there's un dicho. I don't know really how to say it in English. Hay que arar con los bueyes que se tengan.
Say it in Spanish, honey.
Just say it. I don't know, but they make do with what is there for them. So to me, that's what we have to focus on, self-sustaining and not relying on things, and we really do not know how to do that. Because if you go to Puerto Rico, you see a lot of people have cupones, which are in English. It's the things that the government gives you to buy food. So people are relying on that. I know people cupones who do not work at all, and they have that. And I'm not saying, you're lazy. No, I'm not going to say that. There's no work. There's no work to be done. I mean, there's work to be done.
There's no work
job
to be done. Right.
Exactly. There's no money to be made. And so, we don't know how to.
You don't know how to survive. You don't know what to do, to get food on the table, because there's no jobs, so there's no money, and then if there's no money, there's no way to support yourself. So it's a cycle that continues. And so I guess, so in line with the talks of independence, for the island, we think that we would need to have a government that was fully invested in the progress of the island, right? So what do you say, or what do you feel about the critics, I guess, who believe that the Puerto Rican government is corrupt, and it's these politicians and these people in power that have mishandled the money of the island? Governor Padilla, what responsibility do you feel that he has, if at all, to the current crisis that's happening there?
Garcia Padilla. Now this also gets confusing. Governor Garcia Padilla, he's like the picture perfect image of a person who chooses to exploit their people. And then you'll have people who because not only is he a vende patria, Vamos a hablar
He's an ass kisser.
Él es vende patria. And not only is he that, he is someone who is like causing problems and calling out problems, and it's a mess. Entiende? Like, it's like, okay.
Right.
I would say that for the most part, people are going to say, you know, but all of us are oppressed. We're all in a colonial situation, which is true. It's true. Puerto Rico's government is a colonial government, and it's oppressed, if that makes sense. But the thing is, Garcia Padilla is way too intelligent for him to be popular, which means that he believes in coloniaje. He believes in the how Puerto Rico is now. And he's also, he has made so many errors, economic errors especially,
right,
that make his so-called leadership look like it doesn't even exist. And so I don't want to say like that he's como marioneta. I don't want to say that he's a puppet, because he has a lot of responsibility. If you choose to sell out your people, you're responsible for that action. And that is what he has done.
Absolutely.
That is what he did a few years ago with the, what were they? They're Moody's, I think was their name, and they had to do with like electric utilities. And basically, he made, he sent like these bonds, los bonos, hasta nivel de chatarra. Like, it was like he kept downgrading the bonds. Not him, but Moody's, and he was allowing that to happen.
Right.
And so, you know, he's made these decisions, and he made a very conscious decision. This isn't a person, como se dice, like, this isn't a person del pueblo that, like,
right,
you know, is doing something, or
he's
like
an educated man.
For example,
right.
Exactly. He has the privilege to know. Because in Puerto Rico, you'll see people who vote popular, and you'll see people who vote PNP, and it's like, why are you still voting for these people who are clearly exploiting who you are? And they are oppressed. But these people who are in higher positions, such as Garcia Padilla, they know better. And so they have full responsibility for everything that they are doing. They have full responsibilities for being in positions of power and not como que asumiendo la responsabilidad to protect their people and to protect, you know, Puerto Rico. They're in a position. I have learned as a writer that I am in a position where I have to be intentional about every single word that I say.
Absolutely.
And he needs to be intentional about every action that he makes or he does, you know. And so when he the fact that he's a popular is reason enough to say that he is responsible. And he is just as responsible as los Yankees who, like, you know, come to Puerto Rico to colonize and, you know, create la Junta de Control Fiscal. He's just as bad. And he needs to go when we kick them out. He can go with them.
Right. And I think that, you know, it's important that we talk about that, because when we're talking about, you know, independence and the island gaining independence, in order for it to prosper, it has to have a government. It has to have leadership that's invested in that progress. You know, overall
and
as
the
a
well-being
nation,
of the people.
not just yes, absolutely, and not someone like the current governor, as you know, eloquently stated, has been selling out his people. You know, and I think that because it is a colonial state, he doesn't even really have that much power, you know, as to what happens on the island. And I think that he really, you know, he, like you said, he more or less is a puppet, whether we want to say it or not. I mean, he's getting his strings pulled by Congress, by the U.S. government, by, you know, these companies that are in there, and with no care as to how it's affecting the people of La Isla. And, you know, and it's a sad situation.
I want to be clear.
Go ahead, yes.
I just want to be clear about something. I like what you said, and like how you're explaining, like how he's maybe a puppet, but I really do not like when we call political leaders puppets, because they're not puppets. They're in positions where,
absolutely.
You know, less like that's saying that he doesn't have the responsibility. That's like taking it like a little bit away, like, oh well, he didn't know better. Like, no, we got to stop being passive.
Yeah,
like people say the same thing about Obama. Right. Obama has made choices, and he's made choices to do horrible things to countries, and you know, like so people. Well, he's a puppet, so it's okay. So we got to stop saying that. We got to stop with that word, calling these leaders puppets. Because why don't we call the good ones puppets? You know, right? There's no such thing. No,
you're right.
They're not puppets
because they still, at the end of the day, they still have free will. You know, so they have, you know, at any moment. You know, the right and the will to either go with something or go against it. And unfortunately, in this situation, we've seen that his decisions have worked against the island and the people, and it's sad. And, you know, so, and for me, not someone that lives there or has ever lived there, it still really affects me greatly because it's still the island of my ancestors. I still have family that live there. You know, so yes, so it does affect me. And it saddens me and it frustrates me. And it angers me even to the point where the politicians here in the United States are not doing enough, you know, for our island. And they've stripped us of our resources and of all of the valuable things that, you know, that we provide. And now they're kind of just, you know, they're leaving us, you know, to drown. And that upsets me. And the fact that Hillary Clinton, you know, she voiced her concerns with Promesa, but she still voted for it. You know, so it's like she's towing the line. She doesn't agree with it, but yes, she voted for it. So I mean, your words say one thing, but your actions say something else, right? And it's frustrating. Maria, is there anything that you want to add?
Well, I wanted to go back to when we were discussing the Zika virus, and Dorothy, you said that it's become sort of sensationalized within the media and is more inducing panic, and the story is becoming bigger than what it really is. So I'm wondering how the economic crisis has affected social services on the island, you know, por ejemplo, the schools and hospitals, and how is Puerto Rico combating the Zika virus? Do they even have the means to do so?
Well, you know, I can say how colonialism, because look, when we say economic crisis, I'm thinking you're talking about like the now. And to be honest, social services have been depleted in Puerto Rico for such a very long time. Yeah, you go to the hospital in the emergency room, and you will wait maybe a whole day, maybe 2 days, and you may never see a doctor. You know what I mean? And people in Puerto Rico, they just some doctors don't actually make any connection with their patients, and they just give them medications. And so that's one thing. You know, the schools. I met a teacher. I like have the pleasure of meeting people who are like in so many different paths, and so it's like really cool to get to know them and get to know what's going on through them. And I met a teacher who explained to me the makeup of her class was 9th through 12th graders. One row was 9th grade, one row was 10th grade, one row was 11th grade, and one row was 12th grade. She teaches in Gabriela Mistral or something like that in Rio Pedras. And so a classroom like that is already like that says a lot. That tells me it's personally anyway, from what I understand about education, is that there's not enough teachers. And it's because the teachers are making low wages, so they leave, just like the doctors. There's a doctor, I was reading, I don't remember the source.
And you said that before, Nancy.
There was something like 2 doctors leaving a day or something crazy like that.
Yes.
And, yeah, so you, like, getting an appointment is like in the United States how there'll be like a clinic and you go and you sign your name on a piece of paper. You may not be seen until 7 o'clock that night, you know? And so it's that's how social services are in Puerto Rico. Social services, I've even seen issues with how the different departments are dealing with like violence towards women, or not even just towards women, just like how sexual abuse has been handled is problematic. I know that there are agencies, or it's not really an agency, it's more of a organization like Paz para las Mujeres, and there's a few others that are like working to fix the issues and the lack of resources for people who are suffering in that realm or like suffering from those types of situations. But the social services piece of Puerto Rico has pretty much education, health, all of those. When you have, since colonialism isn't like a state or like, you know, like the weather, it's not like, oh, it's just rainy. It's like a storm. There's so much that is going on at one time. And so colonialism is just like this really profound concept, and it gets down up all the way down to the individual. So it starts like at the top, the government, then it gets to the municipality, the municipio, then it gets to how the health system is operated, how education is operated, how the university, especially the public universities, are operated, and how things work in Puerto Rico, and then it goes all the way down to the individual and how the individual is affected.
Now, I guess my question is, how can Boricuas in the mainland or on the mainland contribute to this dialogue? Like, what's the call to action? What do you feel should be the call to action? What are some of the things that we can be doing, you know, Boricuas in the States? What should we be doing to raise awareness?
Okay. Bueno, vamos a decir Estados Unidos, United States, not mainland. I can't stand when people do that because they think like all, because you know what I mean? Because they're saying like Puerto Rico is just like a small part of the United States, and it's not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to, you know, come at you personally, but because that's just so popular. A lot of people say it. But, yeah. What can Puerto Ricans do in these states? Well, that's tricky because there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in the States who have no idea what's happening. Okay. And they're not interested.
Which is why we decided to have this conversation today, to enlighten them.
Because there's so many Puerto Ricans who, you have the Puerto Ricans who have been in the United States for so many years and still in the marginalized situations. Because people think, you know, oh, they're going to the United States and then, and the United States is better. It may be better in certain ways and based on certain perspectives, but if you go into como que los barrios puertorriqueños de verdad, like you'll see that there's issues. There's a lot of issues. Thank you, colonialism. And so it gets tricky. So what can Puerto Ricans who know what is going on in Puerto Rico do? Well, first we have to break down what's going on. Why is this happening? What is going on in Puerto Rico? What is going on within Puerto Ricans? Like I'm trying to figure out how to explain this the most clearest way.
Dilo en español. It's easier for you to say it in Spanish. How do you say it in Spanish?
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's just like it's confusing. I had a lot of thoughts in my head. I'm sorry.
First we have your time, honey. I mean, it's a really complicated, you know, thing that's happening. So there isn't one linear answer or response. So you know, so it's fine. We get it. Take your time.
Thank you. First, we have to, like I was saying before, assume responsibility to what's happening, and assume responsibility as a Puerto Rican to want and to dedicate yourself to making a better Puerto Rico. Yesterday I wrote something. I don't really remember what it totally was, but it was something like I said, el boricua llega al fogón a cocinar, pero no prende el fuego. And when I was saying that, what I was meaning was that sometimes people will say that they want something to change. They say that they want to learn something, but they don't actually apply themselves to do it. So, ¿qué pasa? And so when you have people who are in the position in la diaspora, como ustedes, or como, like, you know, there's a lot of leaders and people who know we have to get past having conversations between each other. What I've noticed is that you'll go to, like, you know, groups or like meetings or something with people who are concerned with the issues in the politics of Puerto Rico and concerned with decolonizing Puerto Rico, and it's the exact same people every time. The exact same people. Nobody's really going inside of the neighborhood and talking to people in the neighborhood and addressing, you know, what's going on, not talking to their level. You know what I mean?
Right.
I have the pleasure of being able to do that now, but before it was just like I was a part of forums and a part of, at events, at all sorts of things, and the same exact people saying the same exact thing and not really doing anything about it. Doing something about it would be having these conversations with people who aren't usually at these places. They think, for example, I've talked to people. I can give you the example, like in Puerto Rico. I talked to people who vote PNP. And I asked this lady, I said, why are you voting that? I said, why do you do it? I wasn't asking her, like, hey, what I think is better than you or anything. I just wanted to know why she voted.
Right.
And she told me, bueno, mi papá era PNP y mi abuelo también. And so that's what she said to me. And so I said, do you think that the PNP are helping? I asked her a question, and she said, but I want to keep the tradition. That's like one of the biggest issues within El is like this obsession with tradition. And I am not saying to stop dancing bomba, stop dancing plena, stop, those traditions are fine. But the tradition of being passive, the tradition of, well, it's not really working out, but we're going to do it anyway. Los boricuanos bien chévere, bien nice, bien como que solidario, ¿entiende? So, and so sometimes when things are going wrong, we are still nice and too nice.
Yes.
And so I think that I think going back here, I think that what we have to do is start to recognize issues for what they are, and then do our best to deal with those issues separately. So anyways, when I was talking to this lady, I want to go back to the lady who was voting PNP. When I was talking to her, I asked her what she thought about the independence movement in Puerto Rico, and she told me that they weren't really doing anything for her, but she was specifically speaking about LOPIT, which is like a party, an independence party in Puerto Rico, and so it made sense. I could understand what she was saying because you don't see the people like los PNP tienen una caravana that goes like everywhere throughout Puerto Rico. And they have like a whole bunch of music and hey, voto Rosselló and qué sé yo. And so,
right.
There's people who are independentista. They stay with each other. It's like como un corillo, talking amongst each other. And I think that if we want to expand a level of consciousness, we have to go out and we have to talk. And I want to connect it with what I was saying about Puerto Ricans being so nice. Is that this whole thing about being passive? A lot of times people are like, well, no, let's not talk about politics. Let's not talk about it here because it may cause an issue. I was just at a forum, and I was talking to gentlemen from San Lorenzo, Yauco, and Caguas. And I said to them, I was telling them about la Junta de Control Fiscal. And I told them, I said, entendemos que Puerto Rico es una colonia. And they stopped me, and they were like, no. I said, que Puerto Rico es una colonia. And they said, no, it's not. It's a territory. And, the person one of the people who was working with me kind of just gave me like a look, like, okay, why did you just say that? They don't get that. You shouldn't say that here.
Right.
And it's like, okay, que tú quieres? I'm not going to lie,
right.
You know what I mean? And so I think we have to stop trying to be safe and tiptoeing and being so passive and, oh, well, it's not really going to work, or, I think we have to, hay que joderse. Like, that's how people say it in Puerto Rico. Like, the whole passiveness is just, I think it's one of the worst. One of the worst parts of it, to be honest.
Right. And you know what I also think is part of the problem, that people believe that they don't have the power to affect change. So a lot of times people don't get involved in anything because they feel like nothing's ever going to change. So why bother? Why bother doing that? And we've become, so focused on our own piece of the pie, whereas if we're good and we're living okay, we don't care about the next person. So we don't want to mess up our little piece. So we just do nothing, and we just we sit back and we watch. But that's the wrong action to take, because eventually what's going to happen is that it's going to affect us all, and then when that happens, it's going to be too late. And so I think that the points you've highlighted are really great. I think the fact that you mentioned that we do have to assume responsibility, that our leaders really need to rise and really get involved, and they need to touch those people who, have traditionally decided to sit out and not be engaged. You have to engage those people, and you have to educate them, right? Because that's really what happens. A lot of people just don't know, they don't understand, and like you said, they're so stuck on maintaining tradition that they do it just because, not realizing the impact that has. So we have to educate, we have to take action, and we do. And I love the fact that you say we have to break the tradition of being passive. I absolutely love that. And I don't want to keep you anymore, because we've already kind of exhausted our time with you. I know you have a lot of stuff going on. Marie, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
I wanted to thank Dorothy for joining us in tonight's conversation. And before she leaves us for the night, Dorothy, share your social media network so that people know where to reach you. To any new listeners who may not know who you are, and if you want to attach a disclaimer, because I know that your conversations can spark heated debate all over Twitter and Facebook. So just let the listeners know where they can find you.
Okay. On Facebook, it will be Dorothy Bell Ferrer. Twitter, what is it? Insurgent Prieta. And then I have a blog, which is insurgentprieta.wordpress.com. And I wanted to say, can I say one more thing?
Yes. Sure. Yes, of course.
I wasn't really totally done. I wasn't totally done. So
finish your thought, honey. Finish your thought. I don't want to cut you off, and we do have time. So go right ahead, and the floor is yours, baby.
I just wanted to say that there's like this there's a false concept, or I don't think that's the right word, but there's this false idea. There's this thing that people think that in the United States, Puerto Ricans aren't actually doing anything, and there are some who are. I want to say that I don't remember the name of the group, but there's people who will be marching in D.C. and also in Newark, New Jersey, and within the next few weekends. And so I do want to mention that there are things happening in la diaspora, because in a lot of conversations that I've had with independentistas in la isla, en Puerto Rico, is that, pero esa gente no le importa. I want to mention that is happening, but I do also want to mention is that we have to also take the responsibility to remain connected. Yeah. A lot of Puerto Ricans in the diaspora are focused on the issues that are going on here. It's totally fine, totally relevant, but we do want to make sure that there is like a connection, and that we're always maintaining that connection. I know, for example, and that is also for Puerto Ricans in the island as well, because there are issues among some independentistas who are degrading towards who they would refer to every Puerto Rican from the diaspora, New Yorican. But they have like this thing, there's like anti-New Yorican, and so which is totally strange. Like, you need numbers in order to be independent. Why would you deny? Could they do the same thing to blacks in Puerto Rico? But anyways, that's not. I don't want to get into that because I'll never end.
That's
but
a different
conversation. That has to happen. And so I think that what has to happen is that the two maintain contact with each other. I think that that's really, really important, because la mayoría de los puertorriqueños viven en los Estados Unidos. So we have to keep in mind, of that fact. And then the other part is that I know some Puerto Ricans who do in the United States who do the exact same thing to Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. They like disconnection. And that happens a lot when people are like, well, I don't have to speak Spanish. And, and it's fine. And being bilingual is not an easy task. It's not easy at all. Like, I don't know many people who are fully bilingual. And so I think that having like that sort of an attitude also can cause can cause a disconnect. I get, languages that are from, Europe, La Conquista, but I think that it's important that we do our best to maintain, contact, maintain the bilingual identity, because that's what it is now. But like, well, no English. Some people are, because we don't want United Americanized anything, U.S. Americanized anything. And then you have people like, well, I don't need to speak Spanish. And so, there's like that huge disconnect. So I think that's another piece that Puerto Rico and the diaspora and in Puerto Rico can do is to work to make connection, because I think hello.
And I think I think that it's important that we continue to have. Yeah, it's important that we continue to have these conversations with individuals like you who live on the island, who advocate, for the issues, and you're bringing awareness and you're putting in the work. So it's important that, that we connect with people like you, so that the work that we're doing here in the United States and, is aligned with the work that you're doing on the island for our people, because as you said, we are one. We have to be united, because that's the way we're going to affect change. The easiest way to defeat a people is to divide them. As soon as you divide them, that is the beginning of the end. So I really thank you for kind of mentioning that. I thank you for your time with us tonight. It's been really enlightening. I appreciate all of your wisdom for such a young person. I mean, it's so impressive, and we really need more young women like you. I want you to understand that the work that you're doing, Dorothy, is so important. It's so important not only for Puerto Ricans, but as a woman, as a young person, it's critical that we have more voices like yourself. So don't ever stop doing the work. Continue to do what you're doing, and continue to share that, and continue inspiring people, because that's what you're doing. And don't ever stop writing, honey, because you are fierce with that pen. Okay.
Speaking of the pen, speaking. I also want to say one more thing. I'm sorry. I keep going. I keep thinking of that.
No. Go ahead.
That, like, the articles from Puerto Rico and the articles from the United States are totally different, which I think is like really problematic, because it also is still creating. It's also creating like a distraction. So that's why I was like really into like the whole bilingual piece. I just wanted to be clear about why I'm saying that.
Right.
So I think that, as writers, especially me, it's important to write in both Spanish and English. And I had like a professor last semester who just, was like helping me with, doing that, because I mostly write the Spanglish or whatever, or like, half and half, or sometimes mostly Spanish and then sometimes just English. And it's important if I want people to reach Puerto Ricans, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I just wanted to be clear about why I was bringing up the bilingual piece. It's not to shame anybody, or I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to shame anyone or anything.
Understood.
I just wanted to be clear.
Thank you so much, and we will be in.
Thank you for having me.
Buenas noches.
Anytime, honey.
Thank you so much.
Good night. So, I mean, she provided some really great insight I'm appreciative really of her. And like I said, she is one of the brightest young voices, of today. People really need to, keep their eyes open for her, because this is a person that's affecting change. She's what we call a change maker. One of the things that I wanted to add when she was talking, when we were talking about Zika, and I want to say this really quickly, is that I was having a conversation the other day with my sister, because as you know, I've been reading the book, The War Against All Puerto Ricans by Nelson Denis. And in the book, he mentions there was a period in Puerto Rico between the 1920s and the 1930s where the Puerto Rican women would go into the hospital. They were pregnant. They would go in to give birth. And then once they gave birth, they were getting sterilized. Yes. So during that 10-year span, there was somewhere around 20,000 women sterilized, right? So I was mentioning this to my sister, and we're talking, and she says, well, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if the Zika virus is a way to control the birth rate on the island, right? It's a way to deter women from getting pregnant, right? Because what happens if you have the Zika virus while you're pregnant, your baby is born with a birth defect, And I told her, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if a few years from now that absolutely, comes out. It doesn't surprise me given the history that we have, that the United States has with the island. And I just wanted to mention that. And we're kind of coming to the end of our show, but I know before we go, I just want to give a few shout-outs and thank yous. And then, Maria, I really want you to close with that passage by Dr. Pedro Albizu Campos that we had discussed earlier.
Yes.
So first, before we get out of here, I want to again thank our wonderful guest, Dorothy Bell Ferrer. You were amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us and to really educate us as to what's happening on the island. I also want to say a special thank you to the urban Jíbaro himself, George Torres, who is always so supportive of every single thing that you and I do, Maria. So I would be remiss if I didn't.
Thank you, Papo.
If I didn't acknowledge him. Yes, the whole Sofrito for Your Soul, Capicu Culture, follow them. They're doing amazing work in our communities. These are, the people that have their hands on the pulse when it comes to everything Latinx, right? That's the new term. I also want to shout out a couple of our followers, our Instagram followers, who are loyal and are always, commenting, retweeting our stuff. At Brooklyn Jessie, thank you so much for your continued support. At Better Life Choices of New York, another beautiful woman. She is a life coach doing great things. Follow her. And also at Euphoric Indie. These are all our loyal followers, and we're going to make sure that we give shout-outs every episode to those people who are constantly supporting us. We see you, we appreciate you, and we thank you. So with that, Maria, I want to kind of give it to you so you can kind of just end the broadcast with that message from Dr. Pedro Albizu Campos. So the floor is yours, honey. Take it away.
Going to be, I wanted to share a passage of Don Pedro Albizu Campos' speech that he gave for the Puerto Rican regarding Puerto Rican nationalism in 1936. And for those who do not know who Don Pedro Albizu Campos is, he is the leader among the Puerto Rican people's fight for independence. With that said, I want us to reimagine what freedom looks like for Puerto Rico, what that looks like for a self-governing nation. We stand today docile and defenseless because since 1868, our political and economic power has been systematically stripped away by the United States for its own political and economic gain. We stand as a nation forced not only to demand our liberty, but to demand reparations for having our political and economic liberty taken away. We stand as a nation surrounded by industry, but with little help of it belonging to our people. The business development in Puerto Rico since the United States intervention should have made the island one of the most prosperous islands in the world, but that is not the case. The United States controls our economy, our commerce. Puerto Rico must determine a price for its products that is acceptable to the United States, while the United States issues their products to Puerto Rico at a rate that is comfortable to its own manufacturers and not to the Puerto Rican consumer. The result is exploitation and abuses perpetrated at will, resulting in poverty for our people and wealth for the United States. What will we have when we have nothing but dependency on those who destroyed us? And with that, I want to say good night.
Good night. Thank you all for listening. Tune in next week. We'll be back to a normal programming, and just think about what's happening on the island and think about what you can do, what we can do to really make a change. And with that, good night all.